Hello, this is Bill Bateman. I'd like to discuss one more thing with you before we go into the final value recommendation, and that is sensitivity analysis. And you will be required to include a sensitivity analysis as part of your final valuation project. So what we're looking at right now is our discounted cash flow, at least everything above this green line. And you'll remember that our value of $308,458 was based on a WACC of 11.06 and a growth rate of 2.78. Now, if you remember, when we calculated WACC, we had a lot of different variables and a lot of different assumptions that went into that. So if that WACC is off by even a little bit, either lower or higher, it's going to affect the value that we came up with in our discounted cash flow. That's not even to mention all the things that could go wrong in calculating the free cash flows for the planning horizon. So we're going to ask you to perform a sensitivity analysis, and that's what we see down here at the bottom of this slide. And what I've done is kind of color-coded this for you. The first thing you'll see is that here in yellow, that's our original discounted cash flow value. And we're going to do a sensitivity analysis based on the growth rate, which is in pink, and the weighted average cost of capital, or the discount rate, which is in yellow. If you have set up your discounted cash flow model properly so that weighted average cost of capital and growth rate are dynamic, you should be able to get through this sensitivity analysis with very little trouble. And it would involve putting in, setting up a grid and placing different growth rates across the top on the rows and different WACCs or discount rates down the column. And then go back and calculate a new enterprise value for each one of these combinations. So for instance, let's say that we decided that this 2.78 growth rate really wasn't legitimate. Higgins said it should be 3 or 4 in the textbook. So if we were to stay at the same WACC of 11.06, you'd see that our value would go up to $314,785 at a 3% growth rate, and $348,957 at a 4% growth rate. Now, if you remember, our WACC was based on a 6% debt and a 5% market multiple, or I'm sorry, 5% market risk premium. Well, if those numbers were too high and we substitute them with lower numbers, we'd end up with a WACC closer to 10% than the 11.06% we've got there. So you can see at the same growth rate, with a WACC of 10%, our value goes up to $363,679. And you see the other combinations along the grid here. So you should prepare this sensitivity analysis and talk about how a change in growth or a change in the discount rate, which is weighted average cost of capital in this case, would affect value, and be able to defend any change in growth or WACC that you might recommend when you get to the final section, and that's where you recommend the value for this company.